But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. We choose to go to the moon.
And welcome to World Blockchain Roundtable. It is episode 113, and we are going to be talking cryptocurrency wallets. But to kick things off, let's go ahead and introduce our host for today. As always, we've got Distant, aka Dave, joining us.
That's me.
We've got Joe Dragon from Dragon Chain.
Present.
We've got Lisa, Mighty Litecoin Lisa, joining us as well. And we've got Greg from Rivet. How's everybody doing?
Doing well.
I'm just going to change my name every time to mess you up, John.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm just going to keep saying your name in 4 or 5 different ways and hope
perfect.
that at least 2 of them are correct.
We've got the mighty Boss Tone with us today.
Oh, nice. I like it.
Real deep ska references in this show. That's all we're going to do. First, a quick update from World Blockchain Roundtable. Each host from last week is going to receive a 266 lot. Each contributor is topic contributors receiving 111 lot. Joe Dragon suggested the topic Hinman emails, which we talked last time, so he'll receive 111 for that. As a reminder, these ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, and governance votes. Also, we have our August themed vote up right now. We want to take a look at that. Get in there, vote. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Anything on this list that people are excited about?
I actually haven't looked at it yet. I'm doing a cold read. Let's see.
Me too.
I like jobs. I like having jobs and people having jobs. That helps everybody out.
That's ideal. Yeah.
Top 3 legacy systems.
Excerpt.
I still love
using
the Ripple
Bitcoin.
versus SEC case, man. Like that one.
Yeah.
Is just, I could talk about that shit all day long.
That might be enough reason to do it.
What good timing the last week too. We were talking about how it may have been, maybe we should get these in here sooner so that we don't have such a delay on the topics, being relevant. And then in the middle of the episode, Greg gets from his legal team the ruling sent to him. That was an interesting timing for that topic.
Yep.
I had Greg join me. It aired yesterday on the Very Dow channel with Reggie Middleton and Nick Morgan from ICANN. And one of my fellow volunteers that's on the DAO for Very DAO, and we talked about how that decision affects token holders in the secondary market.
Good.
It was a really great conversation, so maybe should go check that out.
Yeah.
And our Rivet's law firm, the lawyer that primarily handles our work, also wrote an amicus brief for them. So
For
it was,
Very DAO.
I mean, that was the context of why he wasn't sending it to me just because he knew for a fact I'd be interested. He was sending it to me also to say, hey, look at this, it's out, because he had a stake in it. So
Nice.
Good guy, by the way. Hey, Jeff, if you're watching.
He's on vacation, or he would have joined us as well.
I'm excited for
Love
layer
it.
1s and layer 0s. I'm a big Photoshop guy, so I think it's important.
This is true, because with layers you can do a lot of things that you couldn't
Exactly.
do otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Screen print T-shirts, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so I think that's the most important one right there. Fantastic. So get in there. Let us know what you want us to talk about next month.
Legacy systems too. Hopefully that gets in there, because that one's important.
I just
Economic
voted.
Immigration sounds interesting as well. I don't know.
What is it?
A lot of really good topics.
Economic. Oh, geez. Well, the question about that, if we get to do that one, in my opinion, would be it already exists for non-government entities, right? And for things that are kind of government entities that have started operating across the boundaries. But for people, it doesn't exist yet. The fact that, okay, I'm living here in whatever state in the United States, but I really would rather function under those laws that Germany has put in place, right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that would be
like virtual citizenship of somewhere else while you're living in another place, kind of.
Yeah.
Flight rewards is an interesting one too. It might sound boring on the surface, but I like last month was looking through how some of that stuff works, and it's like the perfect application for that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. And interestingly enough, if there were ever a place where I would actually be like, yeah, actually, it might make sense to have government regulation impose something. If they imposed a public blockchain solution for all flight rewards programs and mandated that they be transferable across companies.
All rewards programs. My ice cream shop down the street, I can swap them for.
No, rewards. I mean, I guess you could go all the way back.
No, that would be much harder to do. But yeah,
I'm really anti-government
Well,
regulation, so forget I said that. But they should all use the same thing. That would be awesome. It would be a benefit to their customers.
I think the thing is, if you had enough good companies that actually have an interest not only of being having their customers loyal to them, but to being loyal to their customers, the best companies would want to participate in a program that would essentially say, look, if you don't like changes to our rules or whatever, your history with me at my sandwich shop is on the blockchain. That other sandwich shop could say, hey, you look like a pretty loyal customer. We could reward you for coming in because you were loyal over there historically. Stuff like that would be possible, but Jesus Christ, the freaking
point transfer
mind stretch
offers.
it takes in the real world is crazy because too many people are either too lazy or not actually
right. A company could say
enough.
like, we'll double your points if you come use our airline.
Yes.
So that opens up. You're saying that would open up a market for businesses to shop for loyal customers, basically, based on their behavior. You can see, oh, actually, they're very.
It makes sense because you can say, look, I fly all the time, whatever, but I'm not with your airline. So, it's like it would be a way for real history to be shown to someone else.
And if you want to hear us talk about that, tune in next month. Okay.
Make sure
it's
you
not
go
even
vote
going to
for
be
it.
in current events. It's not even going to come up in current events. You got to tune in next month. You got to go vote so you can hear us talk about how to fly cheaper and what a virtual citizenship would look like. That sounds super fun to me. Also, I'll give out Photoshop tips if you do layers and ones and zeros. But this week we are talking cryptocurrency wallets, and this was nominated by Derox. I'm going to refresh to make sure that I have everything in the right order for our questions. Great. So our first question comes in from Derox. And this question is Ledger Wallet safe after they announced that you can restore your keys? You can restore your keys now.
If you didn't update.
Who wants to take this one first? I don't know. Dave.
I got a quick answer. Yeah. It's the answer is probably, but that's a downgrade from yes. It went from yes to probably. So that depends on how much you value that.
I think that's one thing that I never want to have is to be unsure about is whether or not my wallet is safe. You're like there's no 79% for sure.
Okay.
That's not a good odds.
I gotta say though, and Joe, do you want to go next? Because I got
if you want to go in order, mine's pretty short. My biggest thing, and I would have to say that I have used ledgers for a long time. We still have branded. If anybody wants one, we still have Dragon Chain branded ledgers, Nano S, right? And my biggest concern is that all this time before, they had essentially described that this was impossible. You cannot extract the keys from the ledger. It's impossible to do. I've had, I can give you a couple of reasons that we have looked at. We need to do this. And in fact, I've had to hack in the past the Ledger wallet software in order to pull from an address, really long story, but from an address that was otherwise in their software unreachable, but had like Bitcoin in it, right? And so I've had to hack that code to get to that Bitcoin in the past. And still I couldn't pull a key, right? I couldn't pull the key. And they've said, and now all of a sudden they say, oh no, you can pull a key, and here's why. And it's like, well, wait a minute, you said you couldn't
I
buy the
thought
hardware
they could
itself, could not pull the
only.
key.
I thought that only happened after an update. That the ones, and that was the safety thing, was like, well, just don't update
They were saying it was a
your.
hardware feature that you theoretically should not be able to withdraw the key with the hardware as it is. You would theoretically have to change it would be impossible to pull the key at a hardware level, meaning an update couldn't make that possible, right? So and the reasoning was that no one could infect, no one could attack them from the firmware level, even if you put the firmware in place to pull all your keys and you trick someone to doing it, was still impossible. That was the main point. But now they're saying, oh no, this new firmware lets us pull it so you can back it up, which is questionable and scary. And why would they even do that? It's like
Well, I guess one, it was always going to be software. This is my first point. It was always going to be software in there that was enforcing the rule on the system. So a firmware update could obviously do this to a ledger, right? Like this could freaking happen. It was capable of being done when they first came out with it and made the false promise, right? They benefited from a false promise, and that might make some people pissy at them. You guys remember the FBI Apple case?
Yes.
Where they went to Apple and said, can you help us extract this San Bernardino shooter's password from this device so we can get in? And they said, no, go fuck yourself. And then there was this back and forth.
I thought you were talking about the recent, a couple of years ago, when they said for people's safety, the FBI would be looking at all your photos.
Well, they backed off of that. That wasn't going to be the FBI. That was going to be Apple itself. But the good thing about the current state of the world is the law is not precedented to allow government agencies to come in and tell software companies they have to make corrupted firmware updates, or hardware companies have to make corrupted firmware updates. The law could change, and the fact that Ledger already has now built a mechanism for key recovery makes it even easier for the state to argue in court, right? That we're not putting a huge unfunded burden on you by making you add this capability for us, because you've already added the capability for you. Had they not had the capability at all, their argument would be stronger that we can appropriate some of your engineers and force you, or you can't appropriate some of our engineers and force us to corrupt our firmware for the sake of cracking somebody's wallet. Like, this is something that is a step in the wrong direction, I think, but it's also probably a hypothetical one. And for the most part, the wallet is going to be just as secure as it was before. I don't get why people are so worried about losing keys when an obviously greater threat is government intrusion and government prevention of people accessing their wealth, right? Like, to me, that's the bigger threat. It's far more likely that I'm going to get my bank account seized by some authority for what I decided to spend it on than it is that I'm going to lose the keys to my wallet. And it seems like we're bike shedding this problem way too much because people think this is why people are afraid to adopt. And I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't know how well we vetted that opinion. Anyway,
can I add in real quick that, like, speaking of the Apple case, I think it highlights it. The fact that when they went through that whole rigmarole, it was in the public that, Apple's not letting them. It's like, it's controversial. Should they? It's the government. It's terrorists. Surely they should let them open it up. Come back, what is it? I think it was like 2 or 3 months after everything panned out, and everybody's like, Apple, they got my back. I'm secure. I can put all my my nudes in the cloud with Apple because they aren't going to share it with the government. And it turns out the FBI, and I can't remember if it was in the which leak happened, but the FBI already had the capacity to root those freaking phones, to get them. They already had the back doors necessary to get into those Apple phones, and the entire media frenzy about that was a facade. It was all kabuki theater, and you have to wonder, is like, okay, these people are so well connected that they allow Apple to make this crazy case, even though they knew they could still get into the phones because somebody wanted their Apple stock to go up. Okay. And it's a crazy freaking thing that they want people to feel secure with it. And maybe it's because, oh, you want to make sure that that honeypot stays active, that everybody's like, oh yeah, go ahead and share your terrorist comments and insurrectionist comments on your Apple devices because we have access to them, but we want to make sure people don't think we have access to them. So that type of stuff is BS. And then on the legal side, it's also arbitrary. None of that matters at all. I'd say the reason that it is a big deal about losing your keys is, yeah, they can steal my bank account, they can do all this other stuff, but at least they can't get my fucking Bitcoin, right? At least they can't just call up, make some phone call to their nephew at the local bank and tell them to freeze my account, because they can't. And that's why it's important. And I mean, yes, it's all a matter of what device to use and how do you use it. And a lot of what we do in the crypto world is so bizarre to me, like say having a MetaMask, putting any real value in your browser based keys is absurd. If you're, really, now it's probably relatively safe, but good God, how many holes could there be in your freaking Chrome or Firefox browser that you don't know, nobody knows about, even if you're a technical person. And on top of that, the whole goddamn thing, just like with Apple phones, I would have to contend, I would be surprised if in 20 or 50 years, we don't find out through some leak or some actual attack that the government actually has some compromise, some 0 day into the actual cryptographic algorithms that we're using every day for this stuff, right? So that's why a lot of what architecturally is important is exposure. That if you're going to use blockchain, there is some value to having some part of it private that you can't get access to, right? It's not on a public chain entirely, right? So anyway, that's a lot of stuff. Sorry.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, that's why I keep all of my Bitcoin in my actual wallet. I put all of my Bitcoin onto little gold tokens that I buy off of people on Craigslist and put them in my real wallet. Lisa, anything you want to add to the Ledger wallet safety issue?
No, because I had really thought that it was all about the update. That was the information I had gotten. So I was glad to hear Joe's information that it was the hardware. And, I think it just lends more to us being, it's time to grow up, people. It's time to take possession of your coins and be safe about it and do your own research. So good information.
And security is never perfect either. That's the other really important thing to remember is it's always about driving up the cost of an attack. And it's more costly to attack somebody who's using a hardware wallet than it is somebody who's not. So it's still better security, period.
Yep.
Basically.
All right. Our next question comes from I Am. There have always been clever ways to remember a seed phrase. I guess one, you could use lyrics to remember a seed phrase. Music stimulates emotion, emotions strengthen memories. Also, I've heard of people writing a short story where each paragraph starts with a seed word. When you could email the story to yourself or someone that you wanted to have access to the wallet or address, they would just need to know that the first word of the paragraph was a seed phrase, like cryptography. I've tried to make up a silly story using the seed words, using very few words in between the seed words. Hey, I Am for Am, if you want to, you should share that with us so we have an example of your story. And then do you have any tricks or tips on how to remember a seed phrase for your wallet? Joe, you want to kick this? As soon as I ask if you want to start, you want to kick this one off for us?
Sure. So I think, and I wouldn't want to expose any of the things that I do, right? At operational security myself, there are a lot of things that I do that, the more organic, the better. Like say, remembering a story. If you're gonna, now I've heard a lot of, and I'm not a mathematician, right? I've heard a lot of issues with doing brain wallet stuff, right? The bringing ones in, and I don't know that I trust purely the seed phrase method itself either, but it's a good way. It works. It's definitely better than some of the ways that we had to do stuff in the early days of Bitcoin to secure your local wallet and stuff. But I do think that like the equivalent of finding a load of silver or gold coins from some ancient period, or some pirate treasure or something, is going to be interesting in the future, because it's going to be someone who stamped out their keys into a piece of metal on in some infrastructure somewhere, right? There's some beam. It's like, what are these words? It's like, holy crap, Jim, this is a seed phrase, right? And I've had people who would like send themselves all but one word and try to save that one word. And I was like, I walked one dude through rebuilding his whole seed phrase and transferring everything over, because he had emailed himself 11 of the 12 words, and then was going to save the last one for how he was going to unlock it. I'm like, no, dude, do not do that, right? And the other thing is that I at one point had, I love having stupid ideas for businesses, things that are so absurd. And one of them, and I think it's hilarious, it's more of a comedy thing than anything else, is essentially you have a website that will take your seed phrase and give you a reading. It's like, you're going to go in and talk to the palm reader, but this is reading your seed phrase, which is more financially applicable to you. And the funniest thing is the coding for this would be so simple, because it would essentially take your seed phrase, scan it for value, figure out, oh, you're a Bitcoin person, or maybe you're an Ethereum person, maybe you're a maximalist, you only have one type of coin. It would extract that coin and give you the prophecy that essentially that bad things in your future, right? Your big losses are seen in your future, right? And it would just pull it, but it would give you a good fortune, as it were. So
I love it. There you go.
Yeah.
Greg, any tips or tricks on how to remember your seed phrase?
Yeah. The way that I back up first off, anybody who says memorize it might be hurting you. Like, you don't necessarily want to commit a story to memory, because then if it's in your memory, then somebody who is, a nefarious actor who's, say, threatening to remove a fingernail every time you refuse to divulge a word, then you can tell them, and you would be much better placed to not know what they are if you're being pressured in a physical situation to disclose them. If you can say, I don't know, and it's obvious that you don't know, then you're actually more secure. So what I've done is I've taken common mass market books, because these are all common words, right? And flipped through the pages until I found my words, and written the numbers down on a separate piece of paper of the pages, and taken that and sort of stored it somewhere safe, so that I can, if I need to, recall what book I did that in and go back and look them up. So that's one way that you can use just like simple heuristics. These words are everywhere, right? You can find. Does anybody know what the list of words is called? The whole list of possible words. It's like.
It's
I don't remember.
It's really only the first 4 letters, right, of each word.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even the whole word.
Right. Right.
But I don't know what the.
I don't know if the list has a name, but there is a list. Yeah, there's a list of possibilities. There's
a very good chance that in a book that have and can buy on any airport shelf, all of the words of your wallet exist. So that's like one place to maybe consider trying something like that. I've also played around with the idea of having not just myself write a short story, but GPT write a short story. That'd be another interesting thing to do. And then I don't know, the idea about musical notes could be interesting as well. You could actually maybe find a playlist of songs where one of the words is in each of the songs. That might be an interesting approach.
I'm not gonna lie, this sounds like the plot of National Treasure 3.
Exactly. Someone should have to go through that hunt if they want to break your password and they're not you.
So if you want to look it up, it's BIP39, which I think is like Bitcoin improvement proposal, I think. And the 39th one was for a word list. And I didn't realize, I always wondered that there are multiple languages that they map it to. And there are older versions, like there's an Electrum wallet, a couple of lists that look like they're not used anymore. But if anybody knows early Bitcoin days, there were super interesting but obviously and demonstrably secure ways to back up your local hardware wallet. I used to use something called Vault, I think, and it was just a Bitcoin wallet that you would like put on an air gapped, crappy old little laptop or something, and you would have to basically bring a thumb drive in. You'd have to make a transaction on the unsafe computer. Say, okay, I want to send some Bitcoin here. You would copy that transaction onto your thumb drive, bring that thumb drive to the air gapped computer, and it would essentially sign it, and then you could bring it back. And there are a couple of other interesting ways, but the way you backed up your keys, it didn't even want to trust your printer. Even if it was air gapped, your printer could likely would have compromises on it. And so it would print out a bunch of stuff, but then give you a different answer that you would have to write on the printed paper in order to complete the keys. And as it turns out, it went into disrepair and it wasn't maintained anymore. And I had to hack that and actually export the real keys in order to pull old Bitcoin off years ago. So it's always scary stuff because, think if Ledger stopped sharing an interface, you'd have to pull an old interface, get an old version of Chrome, do all of the type of stuff, in order to run that old code. If there's money there, it's kind of a scary thing, right? At least the seed phrase has been standardized enough that there are multiple implementations of it, so that's a good thing. Anyway.
Yeah, that's why I'm still telling everybody to take their Bitcoin, put it onto a gold coin that you buy off a guy from Craigslist. Safest way to keep your money. Lisa, do you have any tips or tricks for remembering your seed phrase?
I mean, I'm just kind of old school hodler girl, so I just would say stick with the paper wallets in a fireproof safe in multiple locations. But that's kind of would be my recommendation.
There you go. That's good. I love it. All right. Anything else on this? I think we're good.
Yeah, I was going to say that the seed phrase thing, to me, makes it just easier. It's easier than writing down your private key and then not screwing up each little letter. Like the purpose of it, yeah, you can memorize it. It could be a brain wallet that you take with you and stuff. But really, it's just easier to write down and then restore from it, kind of thing. And I was going to bring up, I did a thing. This one's kind of like, it's not private, so it's not really the way that you should store your wallet. But I wanted to bring up that I did a contest a while back and no one's claimed it. And there's free money out there if anybody plays No Man's Sky. I put a seed phrase in a video game called No Man's Sky. So here's how I stored one. I just named a bunch of planets in a solar system, the different words of the seed phrase. And then I went down to this and named a bunch of plants on the planets, the other words of the seed phrase. So that's still out there. You can find details in the gaming layer on Den. Just search for No Man's Sky. Little shout out to that. Just hide it in plain sight. Don't do that.
Did anybody claim all those?
Not yet. I have to check and see, but I don't think so. I know one person found the system, but I did not see them claim the actual. Actually, let me see. I can probably just click on the address here and see if it's still got something in it. Yep, it's still got 256 matter and enough ether for transfer into a secure wallet. So it exists. It's there. My real answer, though, would be I use a piece of software called KeePass XC, and I have a phrase that I have generated that secures that, and it is a password safe vault. It's a cryptographically secure password vault, and I keep passwords in that, including some seed phrases and stuff. So I think it's a lot more realistic to memorize one seed phrase instead of trying to memorize the seed phrases for all your different wallets that you might have, because a lot of us have a bunch of different wallets. And yeah, while it's possible to memorize one of them, 2, 3, 5 of them starts getting hairy. And the benefit of doing it through something like KeePass, where it's maybe something that you also use to secure your passwords that you use to log into websites and stuff, is repetition. Maybe once a day, you'll type in that that phrase, that mnemonic phrase, into your KeyPass software to unlock your other passwords. And so just naturally through repetition, after a while, you'll memorize that one. So that would be my recommendation.
Do any of you guys know anything about HD wallets, hierarchical deterministic wallets? Because that's interesting to come up there related to this, that in the old days of Bitcoin, when you sent a Bitcoin, so let's say I have 1 Bitcoin and I send John 0.1 Bitcoin. So 0.1 Bitcoin will go to John's address. A fee will come out and go to the miner of that block. And the remainder, which is not quite 0.9 Bitcoin, would come back to me. In the old days, privacy was not the top priority. It would come back to the same address, and it would go in and out the same address over and over again. The Bitcoin wallet that came from the Bitcoin, I don't know if it's .org or .com website, whatever it was, I can't remember. The newer wallet was where they generated a new address for the return, so that they improved the privacy and then improved a few other things that were more technical. But it was interesting because in order to do that, it would essentially generate, I think, 25 or 50 addresses, which separate private keys, not a single one. And so it would generate separate. And the funny thing is, people lost significant amounts of Bitcoin because when they moved to a new laptop or a new desktop or didn't have a backup of that, how do I say this? Those keys were just local, right? And if you had backed up, like let's say a lot of people would take that and back it up onto a thumb drive and put it in their safe or something else, or like, I'm good. But the problem is, once you sent more than that 25 addresses, it would generate new addresses, and they're not on your backup. So a lot of people had ended up doing a lot of processing and end up with all this money in those higher keys, and they weren't backed up, and they go to their backup and it's like, wait a minute, my money was there, right? And
that's interesting.
And so
you can't use the master key to back up indefinitely.
And HD wallets, if you look at like when you
because your master key is generating your private public pairs.
When you connect your keys, it has a path, like I can't remember, but it's some number / something / whatever. And there's like a Ledger one, and there's a Ledger Live one, and there's a Trezor one, kind of like with a registered ID at the beginning. That path is calculatable from any now HD key. So if you have an HD key with a 12-word, it essentially maps itself to literally an infinite number of an infinite to a high degree, depending upon what the support level is for how big those numbers can be in that path. But a near infinite number of addresses and keys for all networks, and because it's essentially you have a private key from which you can get a derived child key with which you can generate an address for any arbitrary, Polygon or Ethereum or Bitcoin.
That's the direction that
you get the master key generating, the master private key generating or unlocking access to generate a public private key pair that is derived from that master key. And so that's why they call it hierarchical, because you get that top level master key, and then it is inherited down into the subsequent keys. So if you wanted to, sort of do a 2-step regen process, you could, but it does have that pitfall you noted.
The if you look back into the like the forums and mailing list where Satoshi was still discussing Bitcoin and stuff around 2010, because I was reading this recently actually, they were discussing what would become Monero, basically, an implementation of ring signatures, but specifically this idea that Joe brought up about a private key that can sign a number of public keys, where you can have basically child addresses or sub addresses that you have the same private key for all of them. So that actually was implemented. Interestingly, Satoshi was talking about it back in 2010. Just wanted to point that out.
It's neat stuff.
All right, let's move on to our next question. This one comes from I Am For Him. Can you give a brief education on the purpose of multi-signature crypto wallets? Please include how and why you would use them. Did we have an example for this, or do we want to just kick it off? All right, Greg, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. The classical example of this in ETH-land is probably Gnosis Safe, which my team has used for our on-chain storage and token management since like the beginning. And the rough idea is this is a wallet with a smart contract functionality to it that makes it so that you have to have a certain number of multiple signatures in order to give a wallet an instruction to do something. So instead of me signing from my key, that's my private key and my private key only, to do a transaction, right? I engage in a setup ceremony with two other people, and then we agree on the rules when we do that setup ceremony that says, actually, we want 2 people to be required to sign for every send, and we want 3 people to be required for every send over X, Y, or Z amount. It allows for really good sort of equal partners type group management of assets.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So it's the golden eye of
like if I don't have or like the nuclear bomb scenario you always see where there's 2 keys and you have to turn simultaneously, otherwise it doesn't come on, and they're far enough apart that one person can't do it.
It's a great
Stretch
tool
Armstrong arms, but this is like the Stretch Armstrong arms turnkey solution for a co-owned wallet.
Yeah, it's a great tool for DAOs to use as well. It's a great governance tool. You can set it up. There's BitGo has Litecoin options. So there are different multi-sig wallets, and you can, like Greg was saying, you can set it up where, let's say 5 people are signed in, but you need at least 3 signatures to make a transaction or something like that. So it's a great security, accountability. It also protects the users. When Greg was talking about, look, I don't want people to know that I have my seed phrase memorized because they're going to pull my fingernails out or whatever horrible thing he said earlier. They're like,
it was horrible. I'm sorry.
I only have 1 key. I can't open the wallet. So nobody's going to kidnap me or whatever, because it's going to take 3 or 5 signatures or whatever. So it also protects individuals when there's large amounts in wallet.
True, because it's like, even if you didn't know the key, your attacker doesn't know that you don't know it, and they might think you're lying. But if it's a multi-sig, they know that I'm going to have to go and grab that other person also.
Yep. Yeah, it also enables neat stuff with respect to smart contracts too, because 2 smart contracts or 3 smart contracts can be your signer for a multi-sig.
Yeah.
So you can have multiple preconditions that happen on chain be the trigger for something to actually cause a wallet with a balance to send, which is a really neat capability to have for some more complex transactions or some things that people want to be 2 steps removed from. I can't, off the top of my head, imagine a good plausible example of when that might be useful, but I can tell you right now that there's some folks out there who probably have invented that structure and used it for various different things.
I wonder if you could make the people. This is going to sound like such a stupid question, and let me know if it sounds stupid. But could you make the other 2 people that have keys that have to turn it at the same time, make those like an AI? So in order for it to for the AI to do its job and that person to do its job, it has to look at like other parameters to see if this is actually a good idea or not. So you can tell somebody, actually, I don't
much much like if you had an AI telling you, let's say a nurse is about to give you a shot, and AI would say, wait a minute, with that weight, that dosage, or that drug with conditions are incorrect or whatever, that it could still go to, ideally it would go then, if it met at whatever threshold, that 2 nurses and 1 doctor would have to sign off, or in some cases it might be more, but they'd actually have to sign it for it to go through, right? And to be on record that all of these eyeballs were on it, and yes, they are literally professionally responsible for delivering that drug, right? Versus what really happens.
That's super interesting.
That would save humans, right? That would save lives. But
I don't think that's stupid at all, John. That's smart.
No, it's good. But I think what John was saying is, can you tie it to something that's not human, like
Right.
And
Oh,
John,
yeah.
I may be totally misunderstanding,
Yeah.
but I was thinking of like a Bitcoin block in the future. Like, could the AI be like, the AI will trigger and sign, but not until this block
Bitcoin
clears or
has
something
that
like that?
like
Okay.
built in for, like, say, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's where if you wanted to give an inheritance, you can actually map it to a certain block number,
Okay.
that this money will sit there, and it has to have multi-sig. Maybe the lawyer has to sign off and whatever, but it can't happen before a certain block. They have that built in.
Yeah, that's actually
for-
been vastly improved recently too, because since if you use Taproot, you can actually program that in, and you can't tell it's there until it fires. Once it
Yep.
fires, everyone can see it, but you can
So
have
is that-
hidden logic like that now.
Yeah, time locks are just one example of simple logic that that you could do that would be conditional. And when I say smart contract, I mean generally like
Yeah.
a program controlling a wallet.
Yep.
So yeah, that could be an AI controlled smart contract.
And some
sure.
some of the multi-sigs also have different ways to control, like, say, flow, that even if everybody signs off that there's no way that more than this amount of this type of asset can move in a given
Mhm.
period of time. They have stuff like that to help, for security, and if there were, it's very, very interesting stuff. So
Yeah.
Well, I like the idea of one, I then don't know the other two, right? Because then the AI only is the only one that knows that, has that key or has that phrase or whatever it is. So therefore I don't know it.
well,
But then also that AI could look at like, what if that AI like looked at my actual like my bank accounts and my life, and like it could examine like it could examine me to be like, is this person in distress? Is this person making a sound choice? Is this a smart idea?
oh boy.
Right? That sounds crazy. But then on the other hand,
Well, that's not that crazy of an idea. That's what the banks use right now. They just use the program is trained to protect their risk, not their customers, right? So what you get when you get like this programmatic audit flag on your account is, holy shit, these people are involved in crypto. We need to pause all of their transactions and slow them and delay them and sandbag the shit out of them because they might be doing something.
Yeah,
they
and
don't think is
even in
right.
the case
But
where they say it's for you, because that Turkish,
there's no reason it can't work for people too.
somebody in Turkey tried to pull, or Cyprus tried to pull money out of your account. There's even though it's for them, because they know that essentially they've hacked their system and they're going to end up paying for it. They still say, we're protecting you, so we froze your account. That's why you can't buy your groceries right now, because some guy in Turkey tried to steal money from you. The weird thing, we use a multi-sig on Den.DAO for the assets. Mining goes to the multi-sig every month. Some of the final operations for creating lot have to go through a multi-sig. And if anybody's interested, I mean, we're very interested in getting a more comprehensive integration where the Den.DAO votes themselves would be required. So you would have the system plus all of those users mapped into that multi-sig account, so that a transfer would be fully in front of you. Everybody would see what's happening. And also, because much to what John was talking about, if it would be nice if the other entities might not be known. You think about it with Den.DAO, it isn't only token-based voting, it is behavior-based voting. So imagine if people voting in Den.DAO would have a direct behavior-based plug-in into the votes that actually move tokens or something on the outside. It would be a beautiful thing, because you'd have melded a behavior-based scoring to your ability to sign something on that external smart contract. Super cool, doable. We just haven't had the time or resources to do it. So
You've been
All right.
a little busy.
I think we should coin a new term. We need something equivalent to MMORPGs, because that was like a big like, yeah, what are all those letters that the people wowed at like early when World of Warcraft came out?
all right,
Massively multiplayer or massively multi-signature online HD wallets is
I like it. I like it. I mean, 'cause that's the truth.
MMO
That's what it would be.
HDWs.
That's what it would be. It's not just like, oh, it's a 2 out of 3 or a 4 out of 5 signing. It's a 10 million out of 50 million signing or something, right? I don't know, something like that's what's needed, really.
Sounds good. All right. So the next question comes to us from I Am for I Am. His question is, do you have ideas and tips on how and where to store your seed phrase? Using a safety deposit box is not recommended.
No.
I'm going to speed read the rest of it for everybody because it's kind of long. Okay, done. So good job. So I feel like we kind of already answered this question, like where to store your seed phrase. Is there anywhere that's maybe more like public, like geocaching in No Man's Sky may not be the best idea, but there is something to be said, like Lisa talked about, having your seed phrase in multiple locations, so that way if one place gets compromised or you forget where something is, or that is there
The house
another
burns down. Yeah.
house burns down and the vault also explodes even though it's like fire safe. Are there other ways to do that, or good ideas and tips and tricks for people to keep it in multiple places?
Absolutely. So back in 2018, at 2018 ETH Denver, Austin was on a hack team. This was before we actually could all afford to go and before we'd even formally founded our company. Or it might have been 2017. I'm not exactly sure it was 2017, 2018 era, but he came up with this idea with his team to use something called Shamir's secret sharing scheme to allow users to split their keys into an arbitrary number of shards that you could then share, and those shards could be reassembled to recover your phrase. And that was like, the idea was like, if you wanted to establish a group of people who were in your life that could verify that you were you, they could give you the shard that they're guardianing, and you could reassemble so like if your house burns down, you call your brother-in-law, you call your aunt, you call your grandmother on the other side of the family overseas, whatever, right? 3 different people, 4 different people, however it's set up, right? You can then reassemble your seed phrase from that. So there's software solutions for this that can be built into a service that would still be cryptographically secure. That's what I think the best way forward would be. And I don't know if anybody's implemented a commercial solution based on anything like that, but there's open source software out there already that does that.
Greg,
so they built it over the weekend.
Sounds like you're putting a lot of trust in in-laws there, though.
That's what I was thinking. That's a lot of trusting other people.
Well, no, it doesn't have to be other people, right? Like it could be institutions or whatever. But everybody has somebody that they would trust to hold on to something for them.
Any other tips and tricks outside of what we've already talked about?
There's a lot of stuff about in the past. If you've ever been in the IT security focus, building anything out, or that it used to be pretty well considered almost as a go-to, given that obscurity is not security. So just because something isn't known to the outside world about your system or your API or your interface does not mean that it's secure, because if anybody happens to bump into that or figure out that there is some hole in your firewall, you're dead. And yet there are exceptions to that. And if you look up port knocking, it's a super interesting thing. And you can apply some of those same principles to this. Like, say, if you, for one thing, anywhere you do store it, make sure as much as possible it is semi-permanent. It's not something that could be melted in a typical house fire. Now, does jet fuel burn the steel beams? I don't know, right? So you have to be careful depending upon the type of attack you're talking about. Is it thermite, right? Is it, so if you expect that, then you have to take different precautions. But carving it into stone, banging it into a piece of steel, and putting that steel on your deck, and not putting your whole key there, right? But putting it somewhere. There are cases too. You have 24 words. You can do a poor man's, layman's approach to exactly what Greg mentioned, where you could split those 24 words up in ways that do overlap, but which require at least a certain number of people to come together to build that whole key. So you could then send it to family members, or you have employees that have 2 of the words, right? And you have to essentially get at least 10 of these people together, or 5 of those people and 1 of these people, and then you can assemble a key. You can do things like that, and it's all common sense and testable. Like you could do these things and test it, and those are particularly important because then decentralize that key. So if something fails and somebody loses it, or there's a house fire or something else, and then there are some pretty cool tools that I've used a little bit. Some of them have various weaknesses where it's like a titanium device that you simply, you assemble your keys character by character. Yeah, Bill Fodl. There's a bunch of them that are like that.
Yep.
You can buy for like $9 or $15 a metal stamp kit that gives you full alphanumeric stamps that you can stamp it onto whatever. You could stamp them onto the inside of your belt, right? I don't know.
If you want to get real fancy, have you guys ever heard of the Odin project?
Yes.
There's this guy who used to work for NASA who developed the Odin, which is a home CRISPR kit. You could DNA modify yourself to hide your keys in your own genome.
Be careful there, because it could also reproduce, right? And you could end up having it.
That's
I don't know,
interesting.
be a good genetic designer, I guess.
Wait, what the hell did you just say? You can put it into your genome? What?
You
Well,
could actually
DNA modify yourself?
your own DNA to include extra junk data that it happens to be your key.
Yeah. There's a whole thing around that, like say SETI at home, but checking the genome, because my bet is that if aliens have existed anywhere in the universe and we have any connection to them at all from the past, that our genome is probably rife full of messages from those aliens. It's like, when you guys wake up and you start actually looking at this is what you need to know. Here's where you need to go. And
Maybe that's
So
it.
I'm loving this woo side.
And here, by the way, is the keys to your future Bitcoin.
Here's your inheritance. Yeah, after you figure out quantum computing and AI to drive it, and then you point that at your DNA. Here's all the answers. I love that idea.
There's probably no Doge, though. Actually,
there's no way we're not living in a simulation. What the hell? There's no way. This is not just a giant freaking computer. All right. This is insane. Let's go to it's great. I love it. Oh, let's go to the last question. Hey, you know what? We finally got through all the questions. It's a miracle. What do you think of using an old phone versus a hardware wallet, Trezor or Ledger? That's probably enough. Yeah. What do you think about using a old phone versus a hardware wallet? Greg, Joe, what do you think?
I wouldn't. I mean, you could, but you'd have to know a lot about it. And, the problem, frankly, even with those hardware wallets, I mean, you want to be totally safe, do the freaking thing on paper, do all of your signing on paper and then type it out. But the, mobile devices have so many sensors in them, and they even more, your computer, your TV, it is now known through Snowden that your TV has the ability to give information, probably recorded camera or audio. Why does your TV have a mic? Oh, Alexa. Well, essentially that the bad guys or whoever they are, the state actors, can pull information from a TV that is not even connected to the internet, that it actually has an ability to do RF. So you think about, what the hell does your mobile phone have on it, which is full of sensors. They're
Right.
barometrics. There's every type of sensor you could ever that exists is in.
And
your
at the
phone.
root of its program, it's checking in for a tower every 5 or 10 seconds or whatever.
So it's leaking. I wouldn't use it. You'd be better to go get.
I know a safe way to use them, though.
ThinkPad or an ancient laptop that maybe predates any of the activity, which it might not even be doable. You might have to get something really old, but yeah.
We'll go to Greg in a second. He's got a way to use it, but I want to ask: could a Nokia brick, could that work as well?
I don't know. Where would you save it? In the contacts, in your contacts list or something?
I'd win. I get a high score in the game of Snake, and then make that the username when I put the high score in. Each one is a different seed phrase for a high score.
I like it.
There it is, Greg. How do I use my old phones as a wallet?
So I would be very, very careful when you select your old phone to do this with. I think you'd probably be a lot better off with either something rooted completely and loaded with pure Android if you're going to do it with an Android phone. If you're going to use an old iPhone, I wouldn't use anything before they had the secure enclave in it. And I would make sure that you jailbroken so you have access to that through the program that you write. I would sideload a program in both cases, and I would run the wallet like that. But I think a better way to use your old phone to store secure information like this would be to open the back case and etch your key onto the back of the case, snap it back together, and throw it in a closet, because that's the last place anyone trying to steal your key is likely to look. And it's also likely to survive a house fire if it's a metal back. So
Now we know.
Now I know what to look for.
I'm not.
Yeah, the
doing
problem
that,
I
by the
have
way.
with
It's
cell
just a
phones.
thing.
Yeah, the
thought
problem I have with cell phones, even if you don't have
using the software inside it, though.
even if you don't have your SIM card in or anything like that, is the baseband radio. It depends on who you're worried about. If you're worried about a nation state, like if you're a traveling journalist and you're worried about going through a certain country that's like China or Russia or something, where the government has direct access to the infrastructure and can tell companies do this, the phones have baseband radios that are connected even with, well, the US, yeah.
Even without the SIM.
Without the SIM, yeah, even without the
Okay.
SIM.
Oh, yeah.
This is why you see like Stallman and Assange removing not only the SIM but the batteries to their phones too, and things
Emergency alerts and shit still go through.
like that.
Still
So
go line
phones
one.
are convenience tools. It's been called a toy platform for developing apps and stuff like that. So it just depends on how, and also don't keep everything in one spot anyway. Again, depending on what you're keeping and how much it is, don't keep everything in one
Good
seed
fucking
phrase, one
general
wallet.
rule. Eggs in one basket is always a bad idea.
Yep.
Another way you could use your phone as well is you take the back of it off, you go to the battery, you take a knife, and you carve it into the battery. I did try that, and it exploded. But if you get a non-volatile battery, maybe it'll work for you. Lisa, do you have any advice?
Don't use a Galaxy Note 7.
No, I'll let you have the mic drop on the exploding battery. Thanks.
All right, great.
Stay away from that. That's a bad idea.
All right. Well,
Speaking of which, can I add one thing to it?
Please.
No matter what you do, the more physical and organic, the better. Primarily because if you went back 20 years, let alone 50, let alone to the late 18th century, it would astound those people what we live with today and the amount of government listening that happens. They effectively are surveilling everyone and using that broad information to target people. They aren't using it to find the terrorists, which was the noted reason that they opened that up, because they haven't, every time a terrorist comes up, they don't even know who they are. Like, aren't you guys listening to fucking everything? Why wouldn't you know who they are? And essentially that, it's like, okay, it's a nation state. I'm not doing anything against the US. Who cares, right? I'm not doing anything against any nation state. Who cares? The problem is it's been proven in court cases that the bureaucrats that have access to this information have used it for personal benefit, that they've used it to invest in certain stocks, having surveilled the board members of a company, that they know when to invest.
You would never
somehow,
do that.
that they've used it to track their ex-boyfriend girlfriends, stuff like that. So if you don't think that one of those people wouldn't realize, oh, this person is into crypto, I see their Twitter, I'm going to look and see, oh gosh, I can find this key phrase. Guess what? I have an extra bit of money to retire whenever I decide to do it, as long as I do it before they move that.
And also to people that like have that argument, it's not all about us either. Just because you're not like, if you're, just because you're not a journalist or you're not a woman protester in Iran or something like that, like just because you don't have a reason to want to stay safe from the government doesn't mean there aren't very valid cases where it's important to develop tools for people who do need to keep that stuff safe.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's definitely anybody who says only bad guys have something to hide don't fucking get it, right? Like, don't think about it very clearly, because even they will stop and pause and go, do I really want anyone to see how much toilet paper I just bought at the grocery store, along with the Imodium I bought from Amazon, and assume what I'm doing right now. They want that out there. Like, everyone has private lives. They maybe don't think about it because they think about all this information as trivial. But if the public or a big entity that wanted to, silence you ever took an interest in your life, if you ever stop and think about it like that, how much of that stuff could be used to hurt you? And while you may not be under that situation right now, think about all the people that are in that light. Think about all their private lives, the people who are fighting for something that is unpopular but right. Those are the people you hurt by saying, "I don't care about privacy." And I think it's really important to protect that, especially in this realm. And as we go into mass adoption, I hope that people building in this space continue to think like that.
I think that was a Sean moment.
Yeah, that was for you, Sean.
That was for Sean.
All right. So this has been episode 113 of World Blockchain Roundtable. We've been talking about cryptocurrency wallets, privacy, and everything else. Dave, anything you want to let people know about?
Yeah, we're having a Den.Social call that's open to the public at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 Central, noon Pacific today, and it's usually every Thursday at that time. Swing by. We'll talk about stuff, and if you have any questions about Den, that's the place to field them to the governance call. It's a meeting. It's not like a show or anything, so just show up to chat about things you care about.
There you go. Joe, anything you want to let people know about?
I don't think so. I mean, everything's, my mustache, Den.Social call, watch all the XRP stuff. There's a ton going on there, and everybody should be kind of aware and try to keep track of it. Anywhere they can help us in killing our case. And I don't know. I guess we'll watch the skies or something. I don't know.
There you go. Lisa, anything you want to let people know about?
Yeah, I've got 2 things going on. One is, please go watch the interview that I did with Greg on the Very Dow channel regarding the SEC versus Ripple case and the effects on token holders in the secondary market. It was pretty dang brilliant. The other thing is that I will be a part of Silver Symposium in Vegas the end of September, and you can get 10% off your tickets if you go check out my last video from yesterday. I've got a link there, and you get 1 silver round, 1 ounce round with your ticket price, and then you also get 10% off if you use my link. So they're going to have all kinds of great people there. David Morgan and Andy Sheckman and Mike Maloney, we haven't got Mike Maloney confirmed yet. Greg Manarino, a bunch of people, and some crypto guys are going to be there too. So we're kind of bringing 2 worlds together. So it'll be a great event.
It was a great conversation. So
yeah, it was.
Greg, anything you'd like to plug or let people
know? This is going to be a little bit more like, hey, PSA from a self-organizing counter propaganda standpoint, but the counter FUD has already started against the XRP ruling. And the agenda shall be, by the other side, to try to detract from the clear understanding that what the judge really did that was amazing was separate the crypto asset from the investment contract. Crypto assets don't have to be investment contracts. In fact, they aren't. They're part of investment contracts. They're a thing that exchanges value. An investment contract is an event. It's pretty neat. It actually fixes a lot of stuff. So please, out there when you're talking about it, do not let anybody get away with saying the judge did anything other than separate the asset from the investment contract, because that's what happened. And that's the important thing we need to keep. And if that fact gets lost, then they'll have won the propaganda battle between now and whenever the next thing happens. So don't let them have it.
All right. And as always, I've been your host, John Branch. Join us next week, and we're going to be talking about possibilities of crypto and social media in the metaverse. I am so, you know what? I got to bring in the D&D stuff for this one. It's going to be great. We're already living in a matrix. It's going to be wonderful. Leave some blockchain related questions or questions about whatever. and let us know what you want us to talk about. Don't forget to share this episode. The more you share, the more our hosts and topic contributors will get. Like, comment, subscribe, and hang out for current events happening right after this. Play a little video, talk current events. We'll see you in a second.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best.
Adaptable, all capital, label radical yet rational. Adaptable approach is palpable if this animal is fallible. But that conclusion is laughable, so with for all detachable from the mandible. You see it now?
All right.
All right. Fun show.
So yeah, that was cool.
So does silver end the Fed then? Is that
Yeah.
Silver?
Is that a lot?
Okay.
Gold and silver. There's 25 states right now that have made gold and silver legal tender.
25?
Great infection. Yeah.
Wow.
And Texas is passed something to have a digital backed gold and silver.
I did see
their
that from
own
Texas. Yeah,
currency
that's interesting.
outside the U.S.
Yeah,
So
I
it's-
saw
Star.
that. I thought that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I also saw
Yeah,
that
that's from
it looks like there's a lot of talk about BRICS having its own currency
Mhm.
that was going to be gold backed, that kind of thing. And it looks like that's not going to happen anymore. India's
Interesting.
Really?
pulling away from that. It looks like there's
Really?
a lot of there's a lot. China is kind of losing its ass a little bit. I think there was a lot of misrepresentation of economic strength coming out of China because of how the CCP runs things.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I'm just starting to see some things that make me think, maybe actually this BRICS thing is not as much of a threat to the dollar as it was going to be.
It's really weird how a lot of the because back when if you remember when China was when they had the Olympics and they made all this crazy infrastructure, right? Tons of money went into building, remember that bubble swimming, the whole pool facility and all that, and all of the press was like, they're so advanced, they're so modern, they're way ahead of the U.S. And then all of a sudden, when they threaten the dollar, it's like, oh, there's really nothing. And
Yeah.
it's like we see there's a lot of these
Well-
coast cities that we built that don't get mentioned until they're a threat on the dollar. It's really funny to me.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how people in China are revolting against the CBDC that they've installed.
Oh,
Because I would be willing to bet you anything that the populace is doing. There's actually a fun, and I don't know how to say it in any form of Chinese phrase, but a fun sentiment in an idiom that something along the lines of it's dark and the capital's far away, or something along those lines. People have a rebellious streak in China just as much as they do anywhere else.
So we're
And I
just
would be willing to
drinking
bet
the black
that there is some
market?
revolt against the CBDC there that we're not hearing about at all.
speaking of CBDC there, and their social, I want to pause enough that I don't say some particular phrase that'll get us killed, whatever. But their social thing that they do, that the sad thing about it is, and I had always wondered, and I kind of frustrated that, economists have never looked at, the effects of slave economies on non-slave economies, that you mix these things and there's this unfair competition. It's like, okay, we can't manufacture over here because our people aren't as much slaves. I mean, they're not physical slaves maybe, whereas this other economy has literal physical slaves, and they have child slavery and all the rest of this. And over here, our capitalist multinational corporations are just leveraging, as they freaking would. They're gonna, Apple, Nike, all these groups literally use child labor. I would say slave labor.
We
And-
profit from that kind of slavery all the time.
The weird thing is the secondary thing that I've witnessed directly. We had a prospective contract with this group that did some super advanced facial recognition tech, right? And they're Pacific Northwest based, right? they had some amazing stuff that you'd walk into their room and they would demonstrate it to you. And they're when you logged into their system for a meeting, it used it that essentially you could cover your face and it wouldn't know who you were. And if you just exposed like this much or like this much of your face, it knew who you were, right? It was crazy. And it was because it was using video. So it could do a whole bunch of samples with a little more resolution than it could than a lot of the older systems where they're doing single frame. That company, and it frustrated the hell out of me because they essentially, we didn't get this contract. We didn't because it wasn't because we couldn't do something or they lost interest in what they wanted to do with us. It was because they got heavily distracted. They got this enormous, I don't know the numbers, but we were told enormous contract with Chinese government, right? Why? And it became later known that when like in Hong Kong, those freaking towers that they pulled down, they had the cameras on them, is a freaking American company helping the communists do these evil things to their own citizens, right? And it's just like, it's just frustrating because when you have these like, and frankly, I wouldn't even say that their government in execution or reality is any worse than our own. Our own, it just has, I think that it doesn't have as much power yet as theirs does to do the things that it would love to do. Because our government already...
Do we really even know, right?
Yeah, well, we already know that our government does these things. They're just not able to do it as much in our face. Or maybe
or
sometimes
are
have
they,
as much
right?
efficient effect.
Here's the question, right? You guys remember 1984, the book?
Yes.
I do.
Right? One of the interesting things about the book that I always found unnerving was, one, we knew they lived in a society built on lies, and two, the populace had no idea what was going on for real in the other nations.
Yeah,
we don't actually know.
Yeah.
It could be worse here. It could be
But
better
you
here.
look at-
It could be about
You
the
look
same.
at RT News, like we can't even watch because it's deemed it's not safe for us to watch this news that's created by some government. It's like the PBS, NPR, BBC is all government run, just as RT. I don't know what level it is, but they're all. Let alone you go to NBC and they're literally maintained by and staffed by intel agents. You look at Twitter. The one thing we know about Twitter that we still don't know about Facebook is that they had a massive amount of former but still paid employees of various intel agencies of the U.S. Like that's pretty concerning.
We know that
You
about.
think
We know
it's
that
like,
about the
why
others
is that
too,
allowed?
actually.
Was that?
We know that about the others too. The answer is yes. They have that
Yeah.
many.
Yeah.
Like they were hiring. They're on a hiring spree for that kind of.
Yeah.
Like when they recruit new talent to the trust and safety
And-
team.
And guess what?
It's probably a
people?
former spook.
That is what you get
Former being
when you
spook
give
quotes.
the keys to the kingdom, the ability to create unlimited fiat currency to an organization. Guess what? That organization is going to it's like gas in a system. It's going to go everywhere. It's going to expand to the entire system. They're going to, if you have unlimited money and you want to control stuff, of course you're going to hire people that you control into news orgs and into the whole thing is controlled. So that's what unlimited money gets you, along with unlimited wars and stuff like that. So anyway,
Speaking of surveillance and all that, FedNow was just announced that it is live and launched about 20 minutes ago.
That is, yeah. Good catch on that. There's something for me to look into later.
wow. We knew it was coming.
So what are they using for that? What do you think? What do you think they're using?
They're using that ISO
The 2202 or whatever it is.
200 or what? I get the numbers wrong.
The twos and the O's.
Yeah, that
It's old
messaging
tech. I bet you it's
system.
old tech.
But it's also very convenient that this XRP decision or Ripple decision, I'm sorry, not XRP, just came down because Ripple was going to be the rails for the banksters, right?
Right.
So have they just released the hounds for the big banksters to
Maybe it still is.
run on the rails? It may still be.
Yeah. I don't know the internals of that very well at all.
Yep. Well, I mean, and keep in mind the way that this program works. Who are the customers of this system, right? Who's going to use it? It's going to be
Banks,
right? So it's right now optional to adopt, right now, but optional can become mandatory at the flick of a presidential pen.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that like optional to pay your taxes, where you get thrown in jail? I mean,
whoever controls.
What?
Well, this is where I think, like, from a CCP perspective, what they're doing with their CBDC is smart, because one of their really one of their pain points is getting tax revenue. People just don't pay them, and so if you don't have that option anymore, then you increase your state funding, you increase your tax revenue.
And speaking of that,
I can see it from that perspective.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's all right.
I've said in the past, if it were an honest system that had real effective representation in the governance, that I would be perfectly willing, if it was an honorable system, to say, look, here's the currency. It might be gold backed, it might be Bitcoin backed, doesn't matter. Ideal, of course, would be better, but that you would know. And even if it was governable, that let's say there was they decided there's some need to inflate the currency, maybe we include another, we add another state, right? I don't know, add more population. Maybe there's some reasoning behind that. Okay, that it would be transparent and with advance notice. So essentially, hey, we're going to print some money, 90 days in advance, and that's the ruling. We can't print money in.
Well, I mean, and the only fair way to do it would be to proportionally increase everyone's share.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. It would be a split more than anything, right? And
everybody's bank account balance would go up according to the amount they printed relative to the total amount.
Right. And the interesting thing about that is, in that case, taxes on chain would at least have an honorable basis, right? That I know that I'm paying the same taxes as them, and it's deterministically calculated. It's not just because I didn't.
But what advantages to them are there if it's fair? There's no advantage to inflation if it's fairly and evenly distributed immediately, right? The Cantillon effect is what they want to exploit.
Yeah, the Europeans all know it's going to collapse, the dollar. We're so far away from any ability to fix that. The question is how it collapses. Does the U.S. convert to a CBDC to distract? Do we end up triggering or unilaterally starting a nuclear conflict so nobody cares anymore when it does collapse? I don't know. That's the type of stuff you have to worry about, because that's what's coming. There's something's going to come, because
in all likelihood it's going to be stupid.
Yeah, and it's something's coming because they know it's going to collapse, and they're, I think, just setting up as much as they can so that anyway, it's horrible stuff. It's bad. That's why money has to be sound. It can't be like it is, and people have to freaking start educating themselves about it. And Bitcoin has been brilliant for that, because there are so many more people, Bitcoin and crypto, that understand how it works now.
Right.
Because of that, right?
Well, the whole thing has been propped up on, on paper, raising bond rates, right, which lowers their yield, right? And the only reason that we haven't seen major bank runs is because we allow those accounting tricks to be used. That banks can basically say the present day market value of the mark-to-market situation with bonds. Present day market value of our bonds is not how much we have in reserve. What we have in reserve is the hypothetical maturity value. And that's the only reason that they're even passing any stress tests. That's all banks, every single one of them, up to the biggest. And the second that that's not sustainable, even a little, like the second the U.S. government says bondholders take a haircut, every single bank on earth is going to rattle. Maybe to the foundations. It's going to be a hell of a show. The question is, how long can they get away with raising rates to stave off inflation, and can they do it for long enough to actually sort of bend the curve back towards something like growth. And I don't think that they can do it anymore. Then what we're looking at is sort of a death spiral, and it could take decades if they play their cards right. But that's the game they're playing, for sure.
So I'll be selling my house later this year, and I'm interested to see if FedNow being live makes that process quicker and less painful for me, because I've bought a couple of houses before, and it's never been anything near to like efficient or enjoyable or reasonable or any of that. So I wonder if it'll at least help me out in that regard.
Hopefully.
I wouldn't hold your breath.
I have something to bring up that is like a break from that subject that's super interesting, for which there are blockchain solutions that are definitely not being used yet, and that is AI voice. So I saw, and I thought, oh, maybe we should play it, but it's like maybe we just link it or something. There is a demonstration on Twitter of this guy who, and I think it is called. I can't remember the name of it, but either way, it was a system wherein you can increase the quality of an AI voice by putting a delay on it, but it lets you do a live voice, and it has an entire set of voices that you can use.
Really?
For gaming or whatever. And this dude says, oh, he was doing Walter White for the first half of it, and it had like a 3-second delay. And he said, without the 3-second delay, the quality's not as good, but that's just that's something that is going to get improved in less than 6 months, right? But either way, then he switches it over to the Joe Biden voice, and it's remarkably, that's Joe Biden, right? And so he's doing this, but he's doing it live. It is crazy. And here's the thing that's news, because that's cool, and that's going to keep continuing development, but
keep scam artists in business anyway.
Yeah. How do I say this? For the first time, at least to my knowledge, politics has come into this, that there was apparently an attack ad, and I don't know if it was a robocall or if it was an attack ad by DeSantis using Trump's voice, AI voice. And they're like, that's the first time that's entered into politics. And
with
that's
a deep fake.
Crazy, because that's the type of stuff that's
Wow.
going to open up. And it's like, okay, is this allowed? Because
That's interesting.
Right now, it's allowed, but it's very, very, that's very tricky, right?
The voice
simulation simulacra spiral is accelerating. I love it. It's beautiful.
And if it can destroy our current world, I'm all for it, of course. But
the voice thing is interesting because not too long ago we saw, the demonstration of deep fake being dangerous in politics with the Obama deep fake. But that relied on an actor giving a really good impression, right? It was who was it? It was Jordan Peele, I think, did the impression for it. So it was somebody who was really good at impersonating Obama's voice, doing the voice. And that's the only reason it worked, even though visually the deep fake was convincing. So now we can do both ends of it with AI, and it's convincing. So you have things like, the fake Pentagon attack that crashed the markets for a moment. So somebody could make some money probably. Politics, making leaders of nations say things to their citizens as a weapon, as a propaganda tool, it's going to get crazy. There's no way it's not going to be used for that stuff. Cat's out of the bag kind of thing.
What do we have to do?
Will.
We have to all patent our would you copyright or patent your voice and likeness so that you could trademark? Yeah. What
Maybe.
I think what you need to do is kill
is it
everyone who
considered
does that
intellectual
to you.
property?
Well, Hollywood will figure that out, right?
It's not going to really solve the problem, though, is it?
The Actors Guild striking right now, and the Writers Guild that's part of that conversation is how do we prevent corporations from exploiting our likeness and our IP by just generating a movie with me in it, that kind of thing.
Impossible, right?
You want me to show that to you? Oh, wait a minute. Let me double check if I'm sharing.
At least impossible in any kind of world we want to live in.
Well, I was going to say, you can write laws for whatever you want, but that doesn't mean it's going to. Number one, that doesn't mean it's not
far away, right?
Those laws don't apply to every country, first of all, and not everybody follows the law. So
I like, and at what point too does it become like satire or parody or something too when they're doing this? Like, I'm gonna tell you right now, I've had a lot of Papa John's pizza in my life. They don't use better ingredients. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I live in New York, and there's a lot of famous pizza places that I've never heard of. Like,
if Papa John's allowed to
See,
say
and by
they
the
use
way-
better ingredients, then where's the line?
By the way, using blockchain, you could solve that Papa John's dilemma, because you could show the sourcing of the materials, right? You could say literally, and it's traceable. You could scan your box, and you could see where this cheese came from in Minnesota or something, right? And much the same with the voice, that, you know, anything that I put out there that is official as me is going to be signed. It's going to be on chain, right? You can do that, especially if you're a senator or something, right? If you want to see that, I want to show it to you, because it's and tell me if you can hear the audio.
As you can see, there's a few different modes. We've got the live mode, which I'm currently in, and it allows me to record myself live here and make this video for you. Or this is the mode that you would be in if you wanted to use this in a video game. It is in beta. Right now, the Walter, what you're listening to, actually has about a 3-second delay on him to sound this good. If I lower down this quality here, he won't sound as good. As you can see, these are my unlocked voices so far. This is pretty much just straight up Joe Biden.
It very clearly just straight up sounds like Joe Biden, who is the current president
Holy
of the United
shit.
States. Now use Joe Biden's voice here to explain to you what this piece of voice.ai actually is. So this is known as the voice universe. This is where users can actually upload their own trained voice models onto the quote unquote voice universe for different people to try out and download. For example, we have some impressions of Mario over here.
And I
I'm
wanted
doing
to
the next
do
show
Mario,
in
right?
Joe Biden voice, man.
Fantastic.
I'm gonna find this and install it. I
And, like,
want this.
Yes.
and
I
you
want the
can't.
process.
There's so many ways around it too, because you can't be like, oh, that's the Joe Biden voice, like that's copywritten. You can be like, no, first of all, it's not exactly his voice. He just said it's literally not exactly his voice. But you can also be like, no, this is old white man president. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
The generic
This is-
branding. Yeah.
This isn't Mario. This is Italian plumber. This is, you know what I mean? Like, there's a whole series of knockoffs for
Yeah.
everything.
Oh, this is the 1980s Joe Biden. It's definitely not the same person,
Yeah.
right?
And-
So
He doesn't look the same. So
And
yeah.
I don't know if you ever have bought like, if you go buy like jewelry, a lot of jewelers will be like, whatever you find, I can just make for you at cost.
Really?
Because you only have to change. Yeah, this happened when I like bought my like engagement rings and stuff like that. They're like, we just have to change it a certain amount. It's like 10% or 20% or something like that. But the way all the changes they make are like in the infrastructure side. So it's not stuff you actually see on the ring. So from the outside, it looks exactly the same, but the way it holds the diamond on the backside that nobody looks at is a little different. Totally fine, right? So like they could make changes to the voice in pitches that you can't hear.
oh yeah.
Right.
So like we're gonna add a fucking dog whistle in here, or whatever it is, right? What was I listening? There's something I was listening to today. Did you know that plants scream?
I've heard this before.
Yeah, when you like cut a plant, it screams and makes a noise.
Oh, yeah.
Real thing. So vegans, you're hurting something. Just letting you know.
Of course.
But like,
You
but
can
so
also,
like you can. But it's supposed to be like it's supposed to be like a conversational. Like we're just not picking it up.
Yeah.
So like you could just add that sound in there and be like, no, it's different. Look, dude.
No,
it's
this
got
is
a plant screaming over.
Yeah.
That might be, although that might be, it needs to be said that might be why Joe Biden's dog has bit him before. I mean, dog whistle might really be there, right? So
So
yeah, I think that's a whole, like in chat, you know, I am is pointing out that there's no way to stop it. I don't think there is. I think everyone
you
should
wouldn't want
read up on the prophecies that were written by William Gibson and Neil Stevenson. There's a lot of good novels out there that teach you how to live in a world that we're quickly approaching. So just get used to it, figure it out. Make it
Yep.
a game. Have fun with
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Let's
Don't
play
complain
the
about
hide my
don't complain about
communications
knowledge
game
harvesting. Just learn how to do it better than everybody else.
for the rest of my
Cabin in the
life.
woods.
Yeah, we're gonna play secret agent. Where we're all gonna pretend to be secret agents, so we have to use all the
We
encrypted
are all
messaging and
secret
stuff.
agents now, man.
Yeah,
So
everyone is a
is
secret agent
You're
now.
your own nation
this-
state.
Is this the part of the story where the 17th letter said we're going to show people that they could be tricked? Because otherwise, you can trick a man easier than you can get them to believe they were being tricked, and so they have to show that you have been tricked.
I don't
so
know.
That they can
I believe
be
that's
humble
true, though.
enough to know that they've been tricked for you.
What'd you call that? The 17th? I haven't heard that, but I believe that.
Letter.
It looks kind of like your shirt if it was just twisted a little bit. If the dragon tail was just think, yeah.
I'll have to look it up.
Letter.
But yeah, I think that people can be tricked pretty darn easily.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, and there's also going to be, keep in mind, there's going to be some very easy ways for people to enhance proving who they are with blockchain powered tools, right? You could very easily require that somebody has to sign into a live stream, for instance, with a private key that only they control. Not impossible. Blockchains can make that easier. There are lots of other ways we can do that. Or, we can take amusement from this, right? There's no way that everybody everywhere is going to be taking everything seriously all the time. And some live streams where somebody jumps in and like effectively pulls off Elon Musk cannot be sustained as a news story forever when they check with the actual guy.
Yeah, here's a great example of that in chat.
We can just be amused.
There's no way this isn't going to happen. We're coming up into 2024 elections just as this stuff is starting to get good and freely available. That's parody. That's fair use, right? Having a funny how are we not going to see that used to make really good what is it? The epic hip hop battles and stuff. The history hip hop battles.
It's going to make some
whatever they're called. Yeah, it'll make some great art.
Everybody will be able to tell when they watch. Ultimately, if they pay close attention, that I don't actually have Alzheimer's.
Yeah, and the hard part too is that there's no precedent right now, right? That's like law is like all about precedent. Like there's no like what are we gonna reference for AI voice changing for this? A law from the 1800s
apparently
about like circus performers doing impressions of the king. Like
the 1930s were good enough for crypto.
Right? Yeah, the 1930s before computers were everywhere was good enough for modern, decentralization tech. So fuck it, why not?
I'm sure there's a constitutional argument there where about like either like maybe the Fourth Amendment, somehow your property being violated if it's your IP. Like there's a constitutional argument there. There's
gonna be a case and a ruling on it at some point.
Yeah, but that takes years and years and years.
Yep.
Like if it's we talked about this
well,
before.
right?
It's a constitutional
post
argument.
hoc, it doesn't matter, right? If you get away with it in the first place, like it's illegal to streak on the baseball field in the ninth inning at the World Series, but a law that prevents that is not, or the law that says that that's illegal is not going to prevent somebody from trying it anyway. The 15 minutes of fame part can still be quite devastating, despite the fact that someone might get in legal trouble for doing so.
Exactly.
I'm looking for it. I have a WebM somewhere stored, which is precisely what I am asked for, which is Trump and Biden going at a debate. Whether you're a Wojak and it's stupid. It's really good though. I'm gonna try to find it.
I feel like
this
needs to be like a mini episode on the Greg's Joe Rogan experience. I forget what it was. Crypto Joe Rogan experience.
We do a special episode here where each of us is a different character, including the AI generated figure, and we're all just taking on a person.
I could do that whenever Dragon Chain settles their lawsuit and they want to pump some money into the show. Let me know. It'll be great.
Yeah, when the SEC loses dramatically,
which they will, they should just drop it.
At this point, it looks. Now, I'm nobody, right? Personal opinion here. It just looks really bad right now on them because, the shit that they claimed in this case is basically all of what was thrown out as bullshit in the Ripple case.
Yeah.
So
Like you guys didn't even do any of the stuff that they're still on the hook for. So
Right.
well, they literally said things that weren't true, that were demonstrably untrue. So I don't. But even beyond that, some of the things that they're saying, oh, because of this, then it's a security, has just been like, nope.
right.
Like seriously,
I'm surprised
nope.
there still hasn't been like a re-burgeoning of something resembling an ICO where it's just blind bid ask, where somebody
Well,
didn't
maybe
do any KYC.
that
and
might
just started dropping tokens.
happen. That might happen.
Yeah.
Because if I were
It won't be-
in the token world right now and I wanted to make some money
It-
and not have any risk, I would say, come buy this completely randomized thing. There's no expectation of value.
Now, I will say it's not going
I
to
just
happen
need-
tomorrow.
I
If
just
you
need a
see one tomorrow,
contribution to build this software.
if you see something tomorrow, be highly suspect. There's going to be people taking advantage of it too.
Yeah.
They're going to be using AI to imitate the voice of some founder, some person people know, to say, oh, it's going to be Gary Gensler says, oh, you know what? Because of the SEC ruling, then you should go buy these tokens here. There's going to be scams like that. Obviously, Elon Musk is going to be like misused. Right now, YouTube still has videos of Elon Musk being, even just like interviews in the past, being chopped up to misrepresent him shilling some scam coin kind of thing that are like going on. So of course it's going to happen.
Do you think someone's going to get on a Twitter space with the actual Elon Musk using Elon Musk fake voice and hear Elon talking to Elon?
Everything will eventually happen.
As long as it's either entertaining or ironic.
Yeah, the most hilarious outcome is the most likely. The most entertaining outcome.
I feel like he would be amused by that too.
That's like the weirdest version of Occam's razor. It's not
not the simplest. Yeah,
it's not the most entertaining for the masses. That's what's gonna happen.
Is it true?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's funny enough. I'm gonna go with that. Right. That's really. And here's I have a theory, by the way. And by the way, partially it's already come true. I told my father-in-law and everybody I knew 10, 15 years ago. Look, seeing what happened in California when Schwarzenegger ran and they had all the celebrities running, it's so obvious what the country's becoming. It's going to be a celebrity, pit thing where they're just going to all run for president. You're going to end up with a freaking celebrity president. Then Trump comes. You're like, I told you, right? I told you this is going to happen. And here's my theory. My theory
the other party
is
needs to run Kim Kardashian if they want to have a standing chance.
Yes. My extended theory is that it is all going to devolve into pure entertainment. Not only are they going to give us bread and circus, the government is going to be the circus.
It's going to be the circus,
is, right? And here's the thing: what that means, though, is production quality. And I'm surprised it has not happened yet, but I predict potentially this next election cycle that speeches are going to be given with an orchestrated score. And you're going to get swelling music with a politician saying the thing that he wants you to believe, and it's gonna blow people away.
We got that with Trump, Joe. We got soundtracks like it was a freaking wrestling match, walking up to give an address.
During the speech, it's like the Braveheart speech, right?
During his press briefings, he did.
No, during his speeches, he does.
Yeah, during his speeches, during his press briefings, it was like pro wrestler intro music.
On his when he walks out, yes, but I'm talking about in a movie when this speech is given, it's going to be swelling music and it's produced.
The best is yet to come. Ba, 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 ba.
Right.
Yep.
Or like, or if you're Biden, it's more like my resolve has never been stronger. He's more evil.
Was it a Sith Lord impression from Star Wars? Was that Star Wars Sith impression? I don't know.
That was my best shot at Emperor Palpatine.
There you go.
Yeah. So I was right.
What music does he use when he whispers "your sexy little girl" to
safe and
underage girls?
Society.
Yes.
I think you know what? I feel a little bit better. I feel like at least the writers and actors are going to have jobs.
Writing for government.
Yeah, you need to get into that area. You could
prompt engineers.
They'll be prompt
engineers.
Yeah, you're gonna have like State of the Union. Yeah, it's gonna be like a AAA film budget where they're just gonna have. It's like they make Avatar or something. They work on it a couple of years ahead of time. You know,
Yes. They already know what's
Have
going
you
to
guys-
happen.
You
Have
look
you guys
at it, and go,
seen
this is garbage, but
Idiocracy?
we still got to release it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have seen
Yeah.
Idiocracy.
yeah.
Yeah,
We don't have time to make a
Idiocracy,
new
where
one.
he's like, all the senators come out and they're like, I am King Camacho. He's like
Yeah.
a wrestler, and he's like sponsored by Doritos.
Yeah.
And they come out and they have all the,
Well, you
like,
guys
let's
know
be
too
honest about it.
how real
Yeah,
that is.
it's gonna be just like that.
When they made,
It kind of already is.
when they made, geez, what was the Roman epic that had? I'm
300.
blanking on
Caligula?
damn it!
The
I'm sorry,
Odyssey?
guys.
What
I'm
are you-
blanking on it.
Roman
Are you thinking of
epic. I need
Caligula?
more words. Give me more
No.
words. I know movies.
No.
I'm
What's the name
happened-
of the sword? What are they like? The battles in the arena.
Gladiator.
Gladiator.
Gladiator. Like when they made Gladiator, apparently they had to cut out stuff that was real, the historically real. That when they were announcing the next events, they would be inline ads. Someone would have paid them to include something about going to some particular business in Rome. That was real, and they cut it out because they thought it was too unrealistic, or people wouldn't believe that was real. But they literally would, And Rome, the series did have a little bit of that in there when the
Brought to you by Carl's Jr.
yeah,
Right.
it's like that's real stuff.
Interesting.
The presidential motorcade will soon be like what, monster trucks, right? Like it's
Yeah,
gonna
the Oscar Mayer Wiener is one of them, and
yeah.
that's
People
what's
will
wild
start
is that's
watering
like
crops with electrolyte laced, aka salt laced fluids.
yeah,
it'll be
it's
salted down
so
crops.
ridiculous to talk about, but there's actually a path, the direct path from where we are right now to get to that, and it's like we're not even leaning away from it. Now, it might not get that cartoonish, but it might.
Well, I mean, it's also going to, and the comfort one can take, the white pill here is it's also going to get that much more and more irrelevant to the way that everyday people organize their lives.
You know what blew me away that's related to this? I did a whole
TV
like
channel, not
week-long,
a national security situation,
I just remembered this. I did a big road trip out in the Southwest. And the Navajo tribe and then the Code Talkers movie and stuff like that, where we used the native language to pass secret messages. There's a Navajo museum. I kept seeing signs for it. We're driving around in our camper van, Navajo Museum. And then I saw like in the corner of the billboard, it had a Burger King logo. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I guess Burger King must have sponsored the Navajo Museum. Whatever. Weird, but whatever. When we got to the town that it was in, it flipped, and it was no longer a Navajo Museum sign with a Burger King logo. It was a Burger King sign with a Navajo Museum logo saying, come see the Navajo Code Talker Museum. It was in a Burger King. It was inside a franchise. Literally, it wasn't just sponsored by it. It was freaking inside of a franchise. Now, maybe
most other Burger Kings don't have a cultural center.
Maybe the franchise was owned by the tribe. Maybe it was their whole thing, whatever. But me coming through, seeing that was like, how like inappropriate did that seem? It's just, I don't know. It blew my mind.
I found it. So I'm gonna share real quick.
I like it kind of. I think that every fast food place should be required to have local culture in it.
Fair point, I guess. It just surprised me. What is this? What is this?
Let's
yeah,
see.
I'm ready for it.
Wait, is it okay?
No way.
It's like I can't see it from here. So, all right, here we go.
Is this using the same voice tool that you were showing before?
Possibly in the world. Listen, you are the soy Wojak. I am the Chad Wojak.
No, you are the soy Jojak, and I am the Chad Gamer Wojak. You know who you are? You are the 80-year-old unfit ruler. That's who you are.
You know you're not the Chad Wojak. I am the Nordic Gamer, Chad, the Giga Chad Wojak.
You're the virgin, and I'm the Chad.
I'm actually not a virgin. Your mom can attest to that.
You are the globalism fan, and I am the patriotism enjoyer.
A better analogy would be that I'm the rare Pepe, and you're the small crying people.
You're Apustaya. You're a small crying Apustaya. I am the based and red-pilled Groyper.
That is not true.
It is true.
No, you're not based. You are actually cringe.
No, I am based and red-pilled.
Ring.
Hello?
Hi, is this the cringe department?
No, this is the base department.
No, I think it is the cringe department.
Beep boop.
What was that?
I would watch this.
I can
Okay,
still
why
hear
not?
it. I can still hear all the cringe.
That is not true.
Let's let it play all the way to the
For
end.
example, I am the Chad Doge, and you are the little tiny Doge.
He's called Cheems, you dumb.
Well, you seem to know a lot about him. Patrick Bateman, great guy. I watched this movie, American Psycho.
Yeah.
Great movie. I really related to the main character. I do think that he might be He might be literally me.
Oh, yeah? Well, have you seen Drive, Blade Runner, or Taxi Driver? I am all of those characters.
You can't be all of those characters.
Yes, I can.
Nuh-uh.
Straw man,
That's not a straw man. Do you even know the definition?
appeal to authority.
You're literally the president.
Anyway,
That is entertainment. That are you not
Right?
entertained?
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's awesome.
We're driving in that direction. They're gonna have to get ratings back somehow, and you know, next thing you're gonna see is the president on a live stream going, "Oop, ice cream, yum! Oop, ice cream,
Oh
yum!"
God.
to get votes.
Oh yeah, they're gonna
Oh my
start.
God.
They're gonna start doing it for real. They're gonna have to start referencing memes.
Mm-hmm.
Digital
Oh, yeah.
prostitution.
But I would say that was the.
What would you say? What?
Sorry, I blanked out there.
He
That
just
that
heard
was
me.
the interesting thing about the 2016 campaign is the meme action was top notch. It was so interesting because they I mean that was what the whole thing was about. That's why I watched it. It was, you know.
I think it's similar to how we have like gaming companies have to cater to adults now because adults we never stopped playing video games. We still love video games.
Yeah.
And so now you have kids that grew up making memes that grew up on memes that they're still going to make memes. They've seen more and they're better at their craft and they're gonna make some dank memes for the rest of their lives.
But meme
One more
speak
thing.
will only become more intricate and more nuanced. It will be a language one has to speak politics.
Yeah, exactly. And you know why? Because of censorship. It is the craziest thing that censorship is something that the traditional world says, oh, we can stop them saying this, we can stop them saying that. You can't ever, how do I say this? The speed with which communication changes, because a meme is essentially making a visualization and something that is humorous that cuts through any resistance of your mind accepting it, the concept. It's just like, oh, that's funny. Why is it funny? Because there's something truth to it, right? There's something behind it. It might be a twist to it, but it's something that communicates a concept directly into the mind, kind of like the way music. If it hits your ears, your mind experiences it. You can't really stop it, right? It's just direct into your mind. So it's an interesting thing that I think is the future of communication, let alone politics. So
I've definitely had the experience with music before where I've thought about things or sort of experienced things from someone else's perspective in a way that I would not have if they hadn't created that piece of art to inject it into my ear holes. So I can see memes doing that.
There's a good scene in Immortal Beloved. There's like, oh, that's truth. Whereas I don't know if it's real or not historically, but Beethoven is trying to explain to his assistant why music is important, right? And it's a pretty cool scene too. So anyway.
That's where truth is allowed in comedy, but it's considered incorrect and censored if you just speak to somebody. But it's allowed in comedy, and that's where you see like those channels like Russell Brand blowing up because people are seeking the truth right now. He's allowed to say it because he's just joking, just jokes, man. You know.
And we had a thing. I want to ask John this. This is when I worked at Lockheed, right? So it was inside of a corporate environment. We had a theory that the closer to the line you could get with something, the funnier it would be. Like you couldn't go over the line, and it was hard to say where the line was. But the goal was to try to approach the line as close as possible in saying something humorous about your boss or the other team or something else. And we tested it a lot, right? But it was an interesting theory that I don't know if anybody else believes. But the closer you get to inappropriate,
there's about 3 or 4 different theories that like prove that to be true if you think about it in different ways. So one, comedy is just the release of tension, and when you release that tension, either comes out as laughter or crying is usually what it is. And it comes out as crying or drama is if somebody actually gets hurt, and if somebody doesn't actually get hurt, then we laugh at it. That's why pratfalls on TV are funny, and when somebody gets hit by a car in person, that's sad.
Right. So unless you're watching it on a CCTV and you're a sicko, and some people do laugh at that.
And there's psychopaths out there as well. So if we like use that analogy with getting closer to the line builds tension. And then if you go over that line, that tension gets released as
there you go.
being sad. If you don't like, and then the closer you can get to that line, the more tension you can build. When you release it, comes out as laughter. So that's one example. I've got like 3 more that.
That's awesome, because we never knew. We were all engineers. We just thought, hey, it seems like the crazier we make these, whatever we're doing, the funnier it is. So we started charting it.
You started charting it.
That's great. John, you can use it in your improv class.
We had a big. It wasn't on a whiteboard. It was on like a big piece of poster board that somebody had on the side of their cube. We say, okay, Jim, that was pretty good, and I would say it's probably about here if the line was there, right? So.
Then so there's like I said, there's like 3 or 4 examples. The other one I think that's worth it is Dave Chappelle's got a great line that really rings true for me and for a lot of people. It's like, you don't have to be funny, you have to be interesting. So like when you're like, oh, how close to the line can we get? It's like, well, we're not trying to be funny with whatever we're saying. We're trying to have the most interesting take on what it is, right? And that's having the most interesting take or viewpoint is going to get you closer to what is over the line and what is not, what is ridiculous and what is not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that's why people like George Carlin. If you read George Carlin, he's not necessarily funny. He's just interesting. It has
he's painfully honest.
Yeah,
what he is,
and that's why you'll listen to him. Yeah, you'll listen to him talk for 5 minutes and not laugh, but you're going to lean in and want to hear everything. And then at the 5-minute mark, you're like, holy shit, that was hilarious. And then you'll laugh because he then makes a crazy analogy that releases that tension.
That guy was on to kind of the circumstance that's been playing out. Like if he was still alive today, I don't think he'd be surprised. I think he would just be more amused.
He'd be laughing and rolling over his bed of money.
Now I regret even more not taking your class on this last Friday, John. I hope you do that again so I can sign up for it.
Yeah,
there's a couple of free samples for you.
Maybe I don't know. Like, because like the problem was too is like I did the class and it was supposed to be an hour and a half. I'm like, and Dakota told me, she's like, you could go 3 hours on this, man. I'm like, shit. That's the problem is I can talk for 3 hours on one small idea of comedy. Or
sort of like a long format interview show
to me.
Yeah, kind of. But that sounds like the most narcissistic thing. It was like, let me teach a class on how things are funny. Like,
no, it's the line metaphor actually was a useful metaphor for me in thinking about funny as a concept. Honestly, that was a very insightful bit you just did there.
Greg, if you can rope John in for 3 hours on that conversation on what it means to be funny and how it works, that's a good one for you.
I think we need to talk about that when you come on.
Absolutely. Just let me know and I'll be there. But speaking of which, I actually got to go. So you guys have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, John.
You just killed that. You didn't kill the tension the right way there.
I didn't kill the tension the right way.
No, you missed your chance to dispel tension.
No, you went over it because now we're sad you're leaving and we don't think it's funny.
So here's the really fun part that I love is that saying what I said lets Greg make that joke.
There's a good point.
Like I have at some point somebody has to be normal, right? So if I can be so like you guys for the show are the normal people.
I have a great and it's the situation or the characters themselves are hilarious. Sometime, if ever, off air, I want to tell you if I grew up in Dodge City, Kansas, but I was born in Wichita, and as a kid, I won't give the whole story, but there was people can figure that out. But there was a show, Santa Claus show, and as an adult, I would watch it because it was so clearly they had these really amazing comedic patterns in it. Are hilarious. I still to this day there's some really funny stuff.
You can make your seed phrase from it.
That's so that was the big thing when Sesame Street came out, people loved it because there was so much adult, not like adult like
timing
comedy. Yeah, it was comedy, but there were so many comedic elements that adults liked. Not that it was like a raunchy, like it was like a bunch of innuendos. Yeah. Yeah, it was great.
Same as old Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
The timing stuff in old Looney Tunes is brilliant. A lot of the stuff in there. So. Anyway, we have less than 6 minutes now, though.
Yeah, 5 minutes to hard stop. We don't have to run it all out if we don't want to. This has been a really good conversation.
Yeah, it really has.
So
for sure.
Shout out to multi-sig wallets. Really good for allowances. So your kid can request their allowance, and then either parent can sign off on it on a 2 of 3 multi-sig.
There you go.
Give to the Dragon Chain Legal Fund. I'm sure they have a multi-sig wallet there.
Yep.
You can give in almost any crypto, any that aren't listed. If somebody has some crypto that's not on there, we would add it. So if you have some bags or something, it's helpful.
If you want to read about what's going on there, you can go to the Dragon Chain layer on Den.Social and use the search bar, search for SEC. It'll pop up. There's a few posts, but most of them, the one from JoJo or from the team will link to the full response document. It's 30 plus pages of a really good explanation of why this, honestly, it's a good primer on how all this stuff works and why it's important.
Yep.
Because I think the argument was no, this is tools, and here's why it's tools.
Yeah. Well, they want to think, and that's why I rail against it so often. The bad guys in this situation, the state, they want to frame everything as a financial asset. It's why? Because we're bankers, and that's what we care about. And it's dudes, I don't give a shit about that. Now, one of our customers might very well, but the point is that. What we built and the reason we built it, that's only one little bitty piece of why it exists, right?
It's an aspect of an element of an overarching system of software that is meant to provide some kind of benefit to humanity when it's out there in the general public.
And I'm interested to see, if this goes to trial, if this goes to jury, I'm an engineer. I didn't come out of Goldman Sachs. I have no banking background. I've never worked at a bank. I don't care about banking. I don't care about venture capitalists. I don't care about any of that crap. We didn't have any VCs in our entire launch, right? We're literally
the case against you is weaker than the case against against Ripple by a substantial margin just on that fact alone. That's funny.
And by the way, the thing that kills me, we've spent years dealing with this, and literally millions of dollars. And like David said, that in my opinion, we've probably lost billions of dollars. That before all this started, we were profitable in a month and a half after we launched. We were already profitable, and then it all went away because of this. And the crazy thing about it is that even our own lawyers that we were paying came with the entire presupposed notion that we were a financial asset, and it was all about banking. It was all about securities law, and why would it be?
Why are we acceding to that framing?
Yeah, and it's taken us quite a while to find the right team, the right people that understand it, that philosophically get why it's there, and that can frame the argument related to the fact that, look, this is software that you can do X with. Why is it any different than a Pokemon card, a baseball card, or buying a car?
Or any other piece of software on the internet that does anything else. Code is not financial if you don't make it financial in how you use it.
Yep. When your granddad bought his 1965 Corvette, right? Chevy was promoting those at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, and now they're worth more. Does that make it an illegal act on Chevrolet, or are they going to go and
I'm sure if you go and get one of those early cypherpunk books where they published the code for RSA for PGP in a printed bound book with hardcover. Yes. And they printed it on T-shirts, right? I'm sure that those are collector's items now. They've gone up in value. Are they securities? God, let's hope not.
And if you want to hear us talk about that more, join us next week for World Blockchain Roundtable. Get in there and ask questions. Let us know what you want to talk about. But we got to go. Thanks so much for hanging out with.
One last word.
Make it quick.
Securities are not contracts. Securities are not investment contracts. Investment contracts are not tokens. Investment contracts are not tokens. Don't let anybody say otherwise.
All right, thanks. See you next week. Here's a song by Y'all Weird called Into the Dragon.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best.
Adaptable, all capital, label radical yet rational. A tactical approach is palpable if this animal is fallible, but that conclusion is laughable. So with for all detachable from the mandible, you see it now.